Wi-Fi enabled devices let us scan and select a Wi-Fi network as part of setup. Could a Pico W do that? Let's try. Hi, I'm John, your concierge to the world of the Raspberry Pi Pico, Pico 2, robotics, IoT and other fun slices of tech. If that sounds like your kind of adventure, then please hit subscribe and join the community. I've been thinking about what it takes to build a product based on a Pico W, and indeed a Pico 2W too. And one of those features is how we set up the device to connect to the network. So I want to be able to scan for Wi-Fi networks, enter the password, and then store that credentials for future use. Nothing surprising in those feature requests, I guess. But can we do it on a Pico W? Well, of course we can. Let's take a look. If this video sparks your inspiration or helps your projects, consider dropping me a tip using that super thanks button below the video, or there's a payment link in the description. This video is sponsored by WolfSSL. Whenever I think about Wi-Fi and networks, one word comes to mind: security. And when I think security, I think WolfSSL. Whether you're scanning for networks on embedded devices, as I'm doing in this video, or building secure connections from the ground up, WolfSSL has you covered. From lightning fast TLS to the power of WolfCrypt. Lightweight, reliable and built for embedded systems, WolfSSL is the security layer that moves as fast as your tech. Go check them out today. So I'm going to take our Pico W and I'm going to try and make it into something that's a bit more product-like. So I know that there's going to be a whole load of Wi-Fi access points around us with a whole load of networks being published. Now, can I scan for those and find them so that I will be able to provide data back to my user to select which one of those he wants to actually connect to? My example program to actually demonstrate this is of course on GitHub. It's in a Mongoose repo with some other Mongoose examples. The reason for that is, well, I wanted to show you the results in something more than just a bit of text coming out the screen. So I actually used Mongoose in order to expose it as a web page. We'll come to that. So to scan our Wi-Fi access points in our environment, the Pico SDK gives us this function here, where we basically give it whatever the CYW43 device is. That's going to be hard-coded the same in every application. We can give it some options, though actually they're onto the options at the moment, so that's just for future use. So that's just an empty structure. An environmental variable, so something we want it to pass into the callback function. That's going to be really useful for me in my C++ coding, and the callback function itself. And every time the callback function comes, because this is how data gets back to you, is basically for every access point it finds, it will call that callback function. In fact, in tests, I noticed it actually calls them multiple times for the same access point that it's finding. But anyway, that gets called back and you get basically that environmental variable as the first parameter in that, and then a structure, which is the scan results itself. What do we actually get back? Well, we get the MAC address. So that's the sort of Wi-Fi Ethernet address of the device itself. The SID name is publishing. So that's the sort of Wi-Fi name that you normally sort of connect to. The channel, now it's only going to be on the 2.4 gigahertz, so that's somewhere between 1 and 12 normally channels that we've got available to us. The authentication type and the signal strength. So in my example over here, which is in this scanner folder, I've basically put everything to do with this into a single class called scanner. So scanner is going to define a chunk of 20 maximum results of these CYW43 EV scan result structures and hold 20 of them, and a counter of how many actually have been called back. And it's going to update that using this scan callback function. Now that scan callback function is of course needs to be a static function because I'm passing it as a function into our callback function. You've just seen that, why I'd need to do that. So I will then actually translate and go from that into the object version of it, which I'm going to call scan handler. And that's going to keep updating that array to put the new records in. So apart from that, we just need to kick off this scan, and then we need to know if it's finished or not, and we're going to do that using the function isScanning. So that's really all. Well, no, there is one more point to it, I suppose, that line above, get JSON. So for demo purposes, I'm going to pass the data back in a JSON structure, which I'm then going to be able to use a little bit of JavaScript in to put into a nice HTML table. So let's have a look at the implementation of this class. So kicking off the scan is really simple. We just reset our counter to 0. We create these options, which, as I said, is something that we haven't yet got to, and then we go and run off the scan. And we do that by initiating that function there, and that will kick off the scan on the current CYW43 instance with those options, and I'm providing this object as the reference into that, so that that will be passed through, which means that when scan callback is called, every time we get a new result, I can actually make the value that we've coming through as environment into a copy of a scanner, and then I can pass that on to an object level function called scan handler. So we've dropped down to object level function, which means I can now get access to my X results count and my X results array. And then the code's basically just why I've actually got room for a new result. It's going to place it into that array of results using something as simple as a memcopy. Now, I did talk also about isScanning. Basically, I'm just reusing the function CYW43 Wi-Fi scan active. If the scan's active, it will just return it, that's all. And get JSON, I won't worry you about how a JSON works. So those are all the functions, and that's all we need to use. The program that uses this is basically just going to make this a web service so that I can return this data back to an HTML page and then display it, which I'll show you in the demo. But then I've shown you in other videos how to do things like that in Mongoose, so I won't go into that here. To make this easier to demo, I've actually embedded this in a Mongoose application. So it's going to put the output onto a web page. And I'm using particular versions of Mongoose to work with for this. So I'm using version 7.19 and FreeRTOS version 11.2.0. And of course the Pico SDK version 2.2.0, just for full disclosure. So here's my web table that I've actually been issued from the Pico W. And when I hit refresh, it will go away, run that scan, get those results and populate this table. And you see we've got the MAC address, the SID there, the channel, the authentication, and indeed the strength. Now every time I'm running this, it's giving back slightly different results, and you'll see that there are multiple lines and multiple calls that we've actually had with basically the same SID coming published and information about it. So you'd have to do some deduplication before you actually provided this as a list for a user to select from. Now you don't have to use this through Mongoose and through web interface, of course. In fact, my plan is to use it in an embedded GUI that's using LVGL, a really lightweight GUI framework that I like, and I've got several other videos on. And then to use it from a WaveShare screen. And that WaveShare screen will give me that GUI interface to be able to hit scan for the available networks in the environment, be able to have a drop-down list where I can select the one that I want to connect to. There we go, let's grab that one. And then I could type in some password in order that we would actually be able to join that network. You'll see more of this project real soon. From the list of Wi-Fi networks, we can get a user to select one and give us the password. We could do that on an embedded touchscreen using LVGL, or perhaps on a web page served in AP mode using Mongoose. Check out my LVGL or Mongoose web server videos to help you on the next steps. Then of course we need to store the credentials, so it's available when we reboot. I've previously done that using the Pico W's flash to hold non-volatile variables. If this video helps you out or sparks ideas for your own projects, consider supporting me with the super thanks button below the video or the payment link that's in the description. I'm saving these up to get myself over to the open source conference in San Francisco in 2026 with all the other content creators. And every contribution brings me one step closer, and I'd love to meet you there. Check out my videos on storing variables in the non-volatile storage next.